All right, so what were the main concerns faced by workers during the Industrial Revolution? So think the breaker boys, think about some of the long working hours, think about the little pay. Did they get sick time, personal time? No, right? So just imagine that. Imagine. Oh, second part too, muckraker. So we talked about a muckraker yesterday. One of the famous ones mentioned about living conditions. I will talk about it a little bit of that. All right, so what do we got here? What are some concerns, issues that we see during this industrial revolution, some of these negative effects with working conditions? Well, go ahead.
Children breakers, ending up with things like fingers, children in the mines, ending up with black lung. If you were the mill spinner, you could possibly lose your fingers that way too. And also, if you let it go under, you could get stuck under there. And then those things weren't exactly safe, so you could end up becoming part of the tapestries in a good pan.
Yeah, about it, right? Yeah, good, good, good. So with child labor, okay, obviously this was utilized early on here in this industrial revolution, not just in Europe, but the United States too. In these textile mills, we mentioned about how kids, well, they didn't have to pay them as much and they could fit in these tight spots, these tight, small areas in order to make sure that the production continues to move, right? I had a picture, I'll have to get it for you, I'll put it on the presentation once I find it here again. There's a picture of these kids here in a hospital, they made this hospital created in England. During this time, especially for these kids that were mutilated during this industrial revolution. There's kids missing arms, legs, you name it, and it's a difficult picture to really look at, but it emphasizes really what was going on during this industrial age with child labor. Right here in the United States, we'll see child labor laws a little bit later. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but once we get into the early 1900s, moving closer to World War One, even after World War One, they decide, you know what, we gotta calm down here with child labor. Right, we gotta make sure that kids go to school, they're educated, right? Not working in the coal mines as breaker boys, which we just watched that video, really emphasized, gives examples here of what lifestyle is really like here in the mines. What else we got here? What else do we have for this? Go ahead, Jason. What you got?
To die in a mining accident. They were not getting paid on it again anymore, so that would probably the wife and children that would also.
Yeah, good job, right? So when you think about how many kids these, obviously these families would have, there's a lot of them. The reason for it is because you needed the income to come in, right? You needed to make sure that you're bringing in more money to put food on the table, right? So you imagine it. My grandmother, she had 7 kids, right? So, what? Jeez. And even before that, there's more, there's 10, right? 10 siblings my grandmother had. It was unbelievable. And the reason for it is because they needed so much money coming in to try to afford goods, try to afford food, to make sure that they could put and keep that roof over their heads. So yeah, that's a good point, right? And when you think about the industry, the factories, it's not like they had safety protocols. It's not like they had rules and regulations to make sure people were protected in the factories, right? So, yeah, it was unfortunate. It was awful. And you gotta imagine with all these dangers out here in the coal mines and in the factories, yeah, a lot of people didn't come home, right? A lot of people, when it comes to the household, the man of the house, so to speak, right? He never really made it home. Right, you guys will talk about it later in American history too, right? When you get to prohibition and why that came about. Right? You gotta imagine these men that are working in the coal mines day in and day out, 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours a day. Right? Where do you think they're gonna spend their time after this long shift? Think they're gonna go home? No, where are they gonna go? Where are they gonna go? Wyatt? Yeah, the bar, right? So you guys will mention that more down the line and how this is gonna bring about prohibition, which gets a lot of people angry, but and this was a way of life during this time because they're demanding so much for this production. All right, what else did we talk about? We mentioned about when it comes to salary, obviously they weren't making a lot. Okay, they had to work these long hours in order to just afford just to have that roof over their head. So yeah, robber barons, we'll mention about that here today with the vocab terms. Okay, a lot of these business owners early on with this capitalist effort, there are some negatives of it if it's not checked, right? If it's unchecked, man, it could really go down a dark path. And we saw that here in the late 1800s, early 1900s, as these business owners, these robber barons are trying to really ream out as much as possible from the workers without giving them pretty much anything. All right, here are your terms for today. We got robber barons. Wanted to make sure that we talked about that. Upton Sinclair. Okay, we're going to mention about another muckraker. Oh, real quick, what's a muckraker? What was a muckraker here? Go ahead, Luna.
It's fairly someone that gave the richer people an insight on how life was in the slums.
Yeah, good job, right? We mentioned about Jacob Reese, right? We mentioned about how the other half lives and how he's taking photographs, pictures of the living conditions in New York and showing the wealthy, the police officers, the politicians saying, hey, we need to do something about the slums here. All right, we're going to mention that today with Upton Sinclair, these undercover journalists, they actually working in these places, working in these, in this case, the meatpacking industries, the factories, and trying to show everybody what actually goes down. In this case, what you're consuming, what you're eating. Oh, that's a little gross, not gonna lie. Remind me, towards the end of class, to publish your assignment. It's about the jungle. A few questions. I want to read it. Jenna, don't give me that one. All right, so make sure you remind me to publish that. If you have a weak stomach, well, make sure you prepare yourself because it's a little gross. I didn't say it, did I? What? Bless you. All right, so robber barons. What do we have for robber barons? What is a robber baron? Jason, go ahead. Thank you. Wait, hold on. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah, good job, right? So when it comes to these capitalists, when it comes to some of these innovators, even Edison, right? We talked about Edison and how he screwed over Tesla, how he used his work in order to enrich himself and then promised them a pay and never gave it to him. Said, "Oh, that was a joke, right? That's a joke. Come on now. I ain't gonna give you $50,000. Thanks for your work, though. I appreciate it." And a lot of these business owners, in whatever field it is, either it's transportation, whether it's power generation, or it's mining, or something with technology like Edison, what you just talked about. Are these robber barons are going to try to eke out every last dime, every last penny, right, in order to make sure that they enrich themselves. The workers, they don't get anything. So a lot of these rich, wealthy business owners of this time, well, they went down this path, right? It's not until we see Teddy Roosevelt or we see some of these other progressive presidents that say, hey, enough's enough. We need to do more for the working class individual, the working class person, the middle class worker. Right, this needs to come to an end. These robber barons need to stop. All right. Actually, President Biden, yesterday in his farewell address, he mentioned about robber barons. You guys listen to that? Anybody for events? No? All right, well, maybe check it out. I think he's a little off-putting with it, but anyway, he said it. He said the term. I was like, well, look, we're talking about that. Right, Upton Sinclair, muckraker. Okay, in this case, he's actually gonna try to uncover the unsanitary conditions for the workers in the meatpacking industry. His goal was to make sure that these workers got a fair pay and that, well, they got the compensation they needed because a lot of them went on strike, these meatpacking workers. Okay, so he's like, oh, we're going to see exactly what they go through on a daily basis. We're going to actually see how their job is. So he goes undercover as a journalist, as a muckraker, and works in these meatpacking industries. And he couldn't believe what he saw, which we're going to talk about today. And he writes about this in The Jungle, right? So these unsafe, unsanitary conditions in the meatpacking industry and realizing that people are buying this meat, this food, and consuming it, gross, disgusting. All right, so The Jungle is going to lead to certain policies and acts created by Teddy Roosevelt, but also other progressive presidents to make sure that people are protected, to make sure that you have an inspector going into these places like restaurants and factories where food is created and packaged, and to make sure it's doing it so safely and sanitary. Right, the Pure Food and Drug Act, making sure that there's a label on the items that you eat, that you consume. Right, so it gives you nutritional facts, it gives you what kind of ingredients are in there, and to make sure that you're protected so that you don't eat anything that's going to cause an allergic reaction. Or I don't know, is unsafe when it comes to certain items that you find in that expiration dates, you name it. Right, so without this Pure Food and Drug Act, right, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't be seeing those labels that you see in a grocery store today. So we're gonna mention about that here today. Okay, towards the end of class, remind me, I got to publish that assignment for you, the jungle. All right, last thing here, I want to show you this political cartoon describing about child labor, detailing about it. It really just shows like it is slavery, because that's pretty much what it was. Right, a lot of these kids really didn't have a decision. They didn't have a choice. They had to go work in the coal mines. They had to go work in the factories. They got paid pretty much nothing, right? And the dangers of the coal mine, which you heard about in that video of the Breaker Boy, right? The dangers in the textile mills, you can only imagine. Again, they're not going home and playing Siege all night long. All right, so moving on. New class structure. All right, so as this industrial age takes off, right, we see a class structure being built, being structured right around this time with this industrial revolution. So the upper class, yeah, you got your rich, wealthy industrial business owners, okay, whether it might be within the oil field, whether it might be in steel, right? I know I mentioned a little bit about Carnegie already with Pittsburgh, bringing that Bessemer process to the Steel City, right, which will be known as the Steel City thanks to him. Rockefeller with oil, Standard Oil, okay? A lot of these tycoons, a lot of these business owners become extremely wealthy during this time because the United States is really uncharted for these new business ventures, right? This is where monopolies start to form. What's a monopoly? Not the board game. What? Yeah, good job, right? So these business owners will buy up their competition, right? Competition's good to make sure that prices are lower so that people can afford it. And well, that creates even more innovation here for this competition. But if one company just buys up all the others, well, is there that competition anymore? Is there anything going to drive down the prices? No. Is there going to be even more innovation? No, because there's no competition. So that was a worry for the time. Right? Again, you guys will talk with Teddy Roosevelt down the line about how they're going to be busting these trucks, breaking apart these monopolies. All right, upper middle class. So you got professionals like doctors, lawyers, okay, and these types of positions that are going to help people out, obviously, so they make a little bit more money. Okay, they're not up there with the tycoons, but pretty good positions. Then you got your lower middle class, teachers, shop owners, office workers, okay, making this pay, making this salary here that can just keep them afloat. Working class, you got your factory workers, okay? So we just talked about the coal mines. We just talked about some of these other industries, these factories here where these people work. All right, so this new class structure is going to take off, and new ideas of economics and even politics are going to emerge thanks to this industrial revolution. We talked about socialism, communism. Should speak those words in here. Okay, anyway, new class structure. I already talked about women in the workplace. Okay, and here we go, the jungle. All right, real quick. So with the assignment, you guys are going to read about the jungle, and it uncovers Upton Sinclair as a muckraker. He describes the harsh conditions, the unsanitary conditions in the meat packing industry. So you got to imagine, right? Here you are cutting up meat. You're cutting up different types of, obviously here, it looks like Rocky's going in and punching in. You guys ever see Rocky before? Yeah? Okay. Anyway, as you can imagine, they're cutting up this meat. They have sharp for knives and butcher knives, you name it. So what happens if you lop off a finger? Oh, geez, okay, that's unfortunate, that's terrible, but you can't stop, you gotta keep rolling, the meat gotta get packaged and sent out to the grocery store. It's the only way you're gonna make any money. So yeah, if you lop off a finger by accident, there's blood squirting all over the meat, just do your best to make sure it stops bleeding, sure, but keep it rolling, package it up, send it off. Someone's gonna buy it, someone has to buy it. Oh, disgusting. What also happens? Well, did they have the proper cooling for this meat back in the day? Refrigerators? No, they didn't, right? So what would that attract? Rodents, mice, rats, you name it. So they would often burrow themselves inside of these cavities of this cattle. And you gotta kill them. You gotta kill them. Sometimes they're chopping it up. Oh, we got a rat in there. What do? Do we throw it out? No, that's a lot of money. Package it up, send it off to the grocery store. Someone's gotta buy it. Ugh. How else do you kill rodents and rats? Mice poison, rat poisoning, you name it, right? That would get inside of this meat, right? Gross, and people will die. They would consume this. They get very sick, and again, how disease spread, right? These workers too. Got snot running from your nose, just blow it up in the corner, spit all over the ground. Do they clean it up? Nope. Package it up, send it to the grocery store. So you guys will read a little bit more about the jungle here. See, as